Hey YouTube, in this stretch where I can post videos, have the time and position to, I felt to respond to TristanPEJ, his The Ethics of Science. I thought about a lot of this, and I want to kind of approach this from a different angle. First off, I don't think we have I think a lot of things that are worried about at present overestimate, in many ways, humans' capacity and our nearness to a lot of things. I'm not saying that we are not close to some major breakthroughs and various things that will endow us with powers and capacities that we haven't imagined. I wouldn't doubt that there will be significant problems related with many of these. He relates the regrets of Einstein with regards to the atomic bomb. Certainly there will be things like that, and I think the fact that ethics is such an afterthought in the commentary he made vis-a-vis the quote of on Jurassic Park, to be something that's an apt summary of much of what humans do. I think one of the scariest things with regard to all this is talking about people going into the sciences and how there's money in science. And I think it's the problem. One of the major problems we have with that is that it's all, since it is profit-centered, whether you're seeking a grant or you're seeking some capacity to market an innovation, either way, however you're doing it, even if you're going simply for prestige, or just the increasing the base of human knowledge, whatever high any of that all gives you. So I fear for I believe in many cases the underpinnings of our actions. Oftentimes the universe seems to regulate a lot of the outcomes based on what is motivating us to do certain things. And I think that's oftentimes why we end up blind to the actual dangers, or we misperceive dangers, and in that way overestimate certain dangers and underestimate others. And of course, as I mentioned, some of them we never see. We never even think about until they've smacked us up the side of the head. And I wanted to kind of address this from another angle. A lot of this is easy for speculation and science. There's been lots of science fiction writings that have seemingly, in many ways, come to fruition. I look at, just the application of all the miniaturization and everything. I mean, we've got the equivalent to Dick Tracy watches in our Blackberries and Palm Pilots, and things of that nature are amazing to see what's happening. I think one thing, and this goes again along the lines of overestimating our capacity, is that rarely do these innovations come along without some relatively unforeseen strings attached, and oftentimes these strings seem to a large degree limit the damage we are able to do. Not to say that, you look at what the world was able to do during the Cold War in nuclear proliferation, and the fallout from that isn't any small thing. It is really sad what's happened, but I also think it's important is to not put too much trust in, not trust, but to not become overly confident in what humans can do. We can certainly screw things up a lot, but I do think, since screwing things up comes back and bites us, we get kind of knocked back down, and it has a kind of self-regulating aspect to it. But to go on, I want to talk about things we don't see. There's a quote by Donald Rumsfeld. I don't know if whatever your feelings are on him, it's an apt description of what position or what conditions are on us with regard to knowledge. And he says, there's the things we know that we know, there's the things that we know that we don't know, and there's the things that we don't know that we don't know. And I think this is one of the biggest areas in which problems start to hit us, in which some of the most potent problems can confront humanity as a whole. And this being that oftentimes we will take these and everything that we can measure. I mean, global warming is a good example. We have all of these inputs, all of these indicators that we can pump into our computers, and so because we can measure this, and we do, and we try to extrapolate, and we throw it to all of our systems and try and predict things, that particular problem or threat stands out, especially if you're very centered on quantifiable empirical things. The ones that you can see or perceive, or you believe you're perceiving, will have a great deal more will be at the forefront of your mind, because you know that you either don't know or do know things about that particular threat. I think the problem is when we run into things, and many things that are as of yet relatively unquantifiable, especially within human nature. I believe that's where a lot of our major blind spots are, and that's where it scares me. You look at memetics or memes and the transmission of these, and we look at, and a lot of this is what comes out of the information technologies we have, but just sociological and cultural things, I believe, will have a much bigger impact than necessarily the scientific innovations. It's more the outgrowth and the spreading of ideas and principles, and perceived principles and false principles and true principles, and all of these interactions that will have a likely much more damaging, potentially damaging or damning consequence for humanity as a whole, because in the past we've had such long periods of times in which the diffusion of ideas has been able to be kind of self-regulated. Bad ideas will, but in a day and age where things spread around so quickly, if some meme that was very destructive spread around, I mean not immediately destructive, but was spread around sufficiently, I think it could decimate humans in the world, and we wouldn't even know it was happening until it was too late, for the most part. I mean, some people might have some idea, but I hope I haven't gone on too long and destroyed the time limit. So.